last 10 minutes. I have just been battling technology, trying to figure out this new streaming platform, Riverside, which I really like it. People suggested it to me, so no complaints there. But Jesus, I could not figure it out for the life of me. But we made it. We're here, and Cynthia is here with us. Our guest today is Cynthia Myers. Cynthia is from Real Life Planning. She is a certified financial planner and an investor doing single family and small multifamily. Cynthia, thank you for your patience and thanks for hopping on the show with me.
Well, I'm sorry I couldn't provide more tech support, but I'm very pleased to be here this morning. Thank you.
All right. I forgot to tell you before we get on the show, we always start with stories. So why don't we go back to the beginning of your story in real estate and just tell us how you got here?
Oh, sure. Well, do you know, my husband and I are both first generation real estate investors. And early on, when we got married, we this is before like fire was really a thing, but we thought, well, we're going to live on one income and invest the rest in things that grow. And for most of our early married life, we were investing in securities, which of course we still do. But during the Great Recession, I had just had my youngest child, and the stock market was in the toilet. And we said to each other, we have got to diversify. We've got to diversify. And so we started to learn as much as we could about investing in rental properties. I'd seen many of my clients do that and do well in that. And so we bought us one single family home. It didn't rent for 11 months after we first bought it.
Oof,
And we
that's
were,
rough.
we had budgeted a certain amount of money to get in. And, we were a little nervous had we made the right decision, but we
Starting to shake
kept
in your
buying
boots.
in. Yeah, we kept buying individual properties, during that period of time, which is a great time to buy properties.
Yeah.
And that's how we got started, right?
Nice.
So it was stock market pain.
Yeah, that's understandable. I actually had just graduated college when in 2008, and so my pain there was I couldn't find a job in most of my end.
Ooh,
So yeah, that was a tough time, but it was great for real
yeah,
estate investing, or at least after that period was great for real estate investing
yeah.
because prices went down. It sounds like you were able to take advantage of that. Once you got those first couple of properties, how did you? I know you guys are into small multi now, but tell us kind of how your career has progressed since then.
Sure, sure. So we originally started with single family homes. We had narrowed to four markets during the Great Recession, and we landed on the Metro Detroit market. So in the nice suburbs
Interesting.
around
Detroit,
Detroit.
that is not
Kind
something a lot of people
yeah.
want to invest in.
Well,
But
so
that's
so
great.
not much in Detroit proper, but in the nice suburbs around Detroit, around where
Okay.
General Motors is. And we really thought at the time that we did not think that the auto industry was going to be allowed to go under, and
Mm,
that turned out to be the correct
yeah,
bet at the
that makes
time.
sense.
And a lot of faith just in general in the industrial Midwest and the Great Lakes region, from an investing point of view. And we invest out of state with a property manager. So, our property manager has been a great partner in our real estate investing business since the beginning. And, we're both my husband Steve and I were still, working full time at the time and for other people. And so we just reinvested all the cash. Like whenever we were big savers and whenever we had enough, we would just buy another one.
Yeah.
And then eventually we moved to small multifamily, right, to the little duplex or triplex kind of property. And during COVID, several of our single family homes had really highly appreciated in value. And so we
Mm,
did some strategic 1031 exchanges for more doors and higher cash flow. And so, we exchanged one to a duplex and we exchanged one to a small apartment complex, for example.
nice. Yeah, I mean, I like your guys' story because I mean, most people that come on here, they've real estate investing is their main focus and their only focus. But there are so many people out there who kind of take your story where they continue to work their job and real estate investing is their side business. But it gets to the point where you don't necessarily have to work. And you guys sounds like you've got there. You've got to the point where you've continually invested. You've been able to reinvest your equity that you've built into your properties. And now you guys are into the multifamily sector where I'm sure the cash flows to the point where you don't necessarily have to work, but you can choose to work obviously if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. My husband, we had a number that we were trying to hit in terms of monthly cash flow.
Mm.
And when we hit that number, my husband continued to work for a little bit while longer in his profession. He worked in reinsurance,
Mm.
and then said, he was ready to be work optional. He
Yeah.
manages the finances, the real estate business, and it's mostly the real estate cash flow that pays the bills. And then I went off and started my uh, financial planning business, and so obviously that helps a little bit there. But we it's the real estate that
It's
got us
worked.
there. Yeah.
That's good. So you guys chose not to invest in your backyard. Not
Hmm.
everybody, most people want to invest where they live, which is a
Hmm.
good strategy. But if you live in a market, like where I live, Seattle,
Hmm.
it's really difficult to find properties that cash flow. I
Hmm.
think you said you're in New Jersey, which
Yeah,
definitely
so we're in New Jersey, but actually when we first started thinking about this, we were living overseas, so we were living in Bermuda,
oh,
and so
Bermuda. Wow. Okay.
in Bermuda, yeah, and so we at the time actually you couldn't buy in Bermuda, but we
Hmm.
didn't expect to be there forever. We thought we'd be expatting for a while longer, and we had sold our house in California when we moved to Bermuda, and so we really were. I mean, wherever we were going
So
to
you
go
were
was going to
just
be
choosing somewhere in the United States. It didn't matter.
choosing somewhere in the United States we thought was a good market. We also at the time we also looked at we can be numbers oriented people, so but my husband and I built a lot of spreadsheets, and we looked at the Detroit metro area. We looked at San Diego, which was very attractive, but we didn't move fast enough. And we looked at Atlanta and Las Vegas, and actually all of those turned out to for whoever
Yeah,
was
I was
there
going to
turned
say
out to
those
be
were
good
all good
places.
choices back in the
Yeah.
day, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
why did you end up settling on Detroit? I feel like had I
Hmm.
looked at all those metros you mentioned
Hmm.
back in 2007 or
Yeah.
17 even, I probably wouldn't have chosen Detroit and its submarkets. Why did you kind of hone in on that market?
Yeah. Well, and so what we were originally looking for, which is very difficult to find in today's national market, right? There are very few regions of the country where this is true now. But at the time, we were looking for where was the rent and homeownership relationship
Renting.
upside down, meaning that it was
Oh, okay.
cheaper to buy a house than it was to rent the same house.
Interesting. Okay.
And now, rates were low, certainly not as low as they went during the early 20s, right? But so the ratios were very compelling, and
And sorry to
yeah,
jump in, but
yeah.
why did you want that ratio? Usually you want it to be cheaper or to be cheaper to rent than buy because that kind of gets people to rent houses, and so you have a lot of demand in what you're buying. But you wanted
Well,
the opposite.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, for you think of it from a return on equity point of view,
Oh,
right?
okay.
I mean, this was a period of time where you could, an investor could buy the 1% property, if you will, meaning that
Mm-hmm.
1% of the purchase price and monthly rent. But you could buy the asset and immediately rent it out at a profit, right?
Yeah.
Given where rates were at the time and some normal assumptions about vacancies and maintenance and that sort of thing.
Nice.
And we also thought that we bought quite a lot around the General Motors area, and we really there's some beautiful towns around there, and we really thought uh, that that the auto industry was not going to go out of business, right? And
Yeah.
that was a very difficult time for Michigan during that period. But it's kind of like you try and buy when just as a general investing principle, like you try and buy when everybody else is leaving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You zig when everybody's zagging.
Mhm.
That is a good strategy to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so looking back on your career, on your trajectory,
Mhm.
what were some of the mistakes you made? What were some of the things that you, looking back, 2020,
Yeah.
you're like, you know what, this is something I know now that
Yeah.
had I know then, I wouldn't have made that decision.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I mean, there's so many. And
Those are the
of course
things that get the best lessons, though.
yeah, I know we're very lucky that everything has worked out. I can think of a couple in but no particular order of importance. So the first one is one of the first properties that we bought was around the corner from a cemetery. And it was
Hmm.
it was a beautiful house. It was 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and a nice fenced in yard and a good school district. And for some reason, the property manager would have these open houses and people would come and then they just wouldn't take the property. Right. And so we had long periods of vacancy in that property, even though it was a gorgeous house. Now, luckily, we are eventually able to, to sell it and to take some appreciation in the property. But, you know, that was one of the earlier ones that we bought.
Interesting. So
Um,
you would not buy near a cemetery in the future.
well, I guess
It makes sense to me. I wouldn't
maybe.
want to live next to a cemetery. So
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it didn't bother either one of us at the time, but apparently it bothers a lot of people. So that's something to think about.
fair enough.
Conversely, we've had some success. For example, one duplex that we own is near a hospital, and that has just been full
Mm.
all the time with zero vacancy, right? And we get
Hospitals,
like
universities. Yeah.
medical residents, and they come in, they recommend it to our friends. Like it's almost never vacant.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense.
the other thing I think, looking back at that time period, is that we both wish we would have.
Oh, looks like we're having a little bit of a technical issue here. Cynthia is coming back on. Give it a second. Cynthia, are you there? Oh, and we lost her. All right. We're going to have to stop this and come back later.